The topic of my presentation today is aspect of language contact in Tamang, and this presentation is based on the preliminary data that I collected during uh, June, July, and August. It's a part of my Nepal academic project uh, related to language contact in Kathmandu Valley. I'm writing a book in Nepali where I have added now the data with Tamang as well, because Kathmandu Valley itself is a multilingual capital city where different languages are spoken, and Tamang is one of the second largest language community spoken in Kathmandu Valley. The first one is Newar. So I found that the data that I gathered the last 3 months were very fruitful, and my presentation, even this presentation is preliminary, but it will provide some information about the language contact situation among the Tamang speakers in Kathmandu Valley. So this is the outline of my presentation. So I will be talking about the introduction of Tamang language and language contact situation, then the methods that I applied and the findings and some conclusion. So talking about the Tamang, we all know that Tamang is one of the major indigenous languages of Nepal, belonging to Tibeto-Burman language family, according to Bradley 97. So the census reports that this is the population of Tamang, census 2011, because we have not updated the census 2021 data yet. And we know that Tamang is the largest ethnic indigenous group in the Bagmati province. Now the country has been divided into the 7 federal states, and in Bagmati federal state, it is the largest ethnic community and the second largest ethnic group in the Kathmandu Valley, and it is spoken in Bagmati province of the central Nepal, mainly in Rasua, Nuwakot, Sindhupalchok, Kavriplanchok, Dharding, Makwanpur, Lalitpur, Bhaktapur, and Kathmandu districts of Nepal. Talking about language contact in Tamang, many individual studies of Tamang language have been carried out, especially by Majadu and Amrityunjan Tamang, and have highlighted many linguistic and social linguistic features and the peculiarities, but not talked about language contact and multilingual conditions of the Tamang people and Tamang community. So being the second largest ethnic group in Kathmandu Valley, which is a promising area for language contact studied because of its large socio-cultural amalgamation and the continuous migration of the people from the different parts of the country, in the last 3 decades, I think the language contact studies in Tamang is one of the important part. It needs to be studied. This is what I thought. So not a systematic study of language contact in Tamang has been carried out yet. That's why I tried my best to see some aspect of language contact in Tamang, especially the Kathmandu Valley, because Kathmandu Valley indicate the 3 major districts, that is Kathmandu, Lalitpur, and Bhaktapur, and where we find large number of Tamang people living in the different parts of the valleys. So the methods that I applied here while collecting the data are, it is based on the data collected through a questionnaires and some other qualitative tools. The questionnaires, especially I developed the questionnaires in 2014 in France at the University of Lyon 2, and these questionnaires were tested and also used for my PhD research that I finished in 2020, and there are 45 survey questionnaires on language use and attitudes. Then I used 4 key informants interview, 8 individual interviews with different peoples, especially the language activists and the community leaders. And the places I collected the data were the Bauddha, Sundarijal. They are in the eastern part of Kathmandu Valley, Kirtipur and Dakshin Kali in the southern part of the Kathmandu Valley, and Kamal Binayak. that is also one borrowing city of the Kathmandu Valley in Bhaktapur district. And the implements I collected within the 45 implements, they were based upon the A1, A2, and A3 groups. Age 1 indicates below 25, A2 indicate 25 to 55, A3 indicate above 55 people. Profession according to their profession, literacy, literate, illiterate, economical condition. So some are businessmen, some are very rich people, some are the very poor people working as a porter, working as a labor, and these are the methods that I used here, and I'm directly going to the findings and the discussions. So the first question was which language that you use in these behavioral activities. So the behavioral activities that I asked them about, making friends, shopping, making telephone calls, talking with workers, talking with teachers and professors, talking with academicians, getting job, reading and writings. And what we could see is that the use of Nepali language is almost all with all the informants. Then we can see the use of Tamang, and whenever we see that, especially with reading, writing activities, getting a job, talking with academicians, talking with teachers, here we could see the use of English more than Tamangs. And we can easily guess that the three languages are in contact, especially the Nepali, their mother tongue Tamang, and especially the English language is coming there with the Tamang people here. And asking about the formal aspect of the language, that especially which language that you use in office and the workplace, political and social gathering, public activities and foreign affairs, administration, and with the strangers. Here we could see the use of Nepali is the same thing, but here we find the use of Tamang. It is still maintaining, especially in the political and social gatherings and public activities, that the use of Tamang is very high, higher than other languages too. Then after we could see the use of English too, but the use of English is very low in these formal activities than Nepali and Tamangs. And talking about family and cultural aspect, I asked them that which language you use for religious festivals, cultural programs, death ceremonies, marriage ceremonies, birth ceremonies, cultural festivals, and we could see that the use of Nepali as well as the use of Tamang, and some way that the use of Tamang is more than the use of Nepali, especially in religious festivals, death ceremonies, that we could see higher than Nepali. And especially the birth ceremony, we could see the equivalent kind of things. It is a kind of celebration. So in cultural festival too, where we find the entry of Hindi coming to here, not instead of English, the entry of Hindi is coming here, and we could guess that why this happened, because it is about family and cultural activities. And so that in cultural activities we could see especially the media and the music. So the impact of the media and music, that Hindi songs, Hindi musics are entering into the Tamang community here too. So how language into a certain community, we could guess something else from these data too. And there was another question related to family members and friends. With family members and friends, which language that you use? So especially with fathers, with mothers, with brothers, with your spouse, fathers at friends at home, friends outside, neighbors at home, neighbor outside, where we could see that inside the domestic activities, especially the activities related to the family and friends inside, family and friends inside the neighbors, that the Tamang language is used, but outside we could see the use of Nepali, the use of English, and the use of Hindi is becoming popular. People are choosing various languages instead of their mother tongue, that is that is Tamang. So these questionnaires related to the language use indicates that Tamang is slowly shifting towards Nepali, English, and Hindi. When we see the language use, when we see these trends of language use among the Tamang, but here I'm talking about what are other aspects. These are the aspect of language use. Now talking about the socio-political aspect of Tamang. So in Tamang dominant community of the Kathmandu Valley, many of the participants explained how their children have been extensively exposed to Nepali and English languages in place of their mother tongue. It means that I asked them, many times I asked them that why are you why are you using Nepali and English instead of your mother tongue Tamang? And they say that because we have been exposed to use English and Nepali because of education, because of job, and because of other regions. They say like that. People from various parts of the country are migrating to the capital city for better opportunity in the jobs and business, as well as shifting to the foreign language like foreign countries like US, Canada, Australia, Europe, and so on, which are influenced by unknown neoliberal feeling of the people. So the Tamang people are also being affected by this kind of neoliberal ideology that the global north neoliberal ideologies are slowly coming to the global south, the developing countries like Nepal. So the Tamang, especially their location is in the hills of the Kathmandu Valley, but they are slowly migrating to the nearest city, nearest town like the Dakshin Kali, Kirtipur, Sundarijal, these are Nagarkot, and these are the places that they have been migrating, and slowly they have been sending the children to the boarding schools, English medium schools, and this is the impact that their children are even they themselves and their children are speaking Nepali, English, and even the Hindi languages too. So many popular media like television channels, radios, and newspapers affect the understanding of the people's behavior that reflect the socio-political understanding of the people. So their socio-political understanding itself has been affected indirectly towards the more dominant link languages like Nepali, the regional link language like Hindi, and the international lingua franca like English. So talking about the developmental aspect of that one, language undergoes changes because of the development and innovation in the society and speech community. So it undergoes changes because of the development and innovation in the society and the speech community. This is something expressed by Rabina, who was selling especially the flowers and the puja samgris, puja materials near the Dakshin Kali temple. She says that we only used to communicate in Tamang in our young days with khas-bound people. Whose khas-bound people are the Brahmin people like me, whose native language is Nepali. Almost all the people in this area speak Tamang, who are similar to our age group. But these days, even our children and grandchildren do not speak our language. It's so sad. She's so sad saying that one, that whenever she go back to Chaimale, her village, she becomes so happy. But whenever she lives there in Dakshin Kali as a vendor, she has to speak Nepali with the children, with other people, and she feels herself that she is losing something. She is losing her own emotions. So this indicates that it is because of the development and innovation that has changed the languages in the multilingual community. And there is market economy. Some people express that we need to speak Nepali and Hindi, otherwise we cannot sell the things, we cannot do the well business. So people connected with tourism and other industry, they express their feelings that it is because of the market economy that have been influenced to use the Nepali, Hindi and other languages too, and people connected with travel and tourism. And there is another very important aspect of language contact situation in the country Nepal. It is especially the migration, the marriage, intermarriage situation. So Tamang marries the Newar marries the Rai Kirati groups, and ultimately the newly married couple speak Nepali as a linked language, and they forget their mother's language and their father's language. This is happening here, especially in the Kathmandu Valley. And as a conclusion, that the data accumulated from the questionnaires, CIIL and interviews shows that Tamang is highly used in cultural and religious activities. Nepali language is frequently spoken in social, official, ceremonial, and media-related activities. English and Hindi languages are used in media, ceremonial, and official activities. We could see the use of Hindi, especially used in the ceremonial activities and official activities too. So a shift in a language often brings about a shift in identity. So generally, a shift in a language brings a shift in identity. So the world is facing different impacts of language contact because of multilingualism in urban areas. So the issue of language shift and mother tongue education, scholars and educators should pay attention to Tamang language and community, why this language is shifting towards Nepali, English and Hindi. So this is my conclusion. I think I have finished my time because the time is very short.
I don't have a question. I want to congratulate Bhim for a very comprehensive study of the Tamang Valley and other parts of Kathmandu Valley to show this language shift that's happening. And I think it opens up possibilities of comparative work with, in fact, the Tamang population in India as well. For example, in Sikkim and in
Yes.
area in general, especially because there is this marriage link, and that would be interesting to see how the other languages that are the so-called killer languages in these areas, like in Gorkhaland and Sikkim, how those are affecting and how children of the new generation of Tamang speakers.
And my question is that, can we simply say that because Tamang constitute only 5% of the total population, owing to the less number of speaker, this is happening, the shift, actually the socio-political understanding from Tamang to Nepali or Hindi or English, is it just because of the minority or the prestige attached to Nepali or Hindi? And as you said, the other factors like intercaste marriages and all other things.
In the context of Nepal, the Tamang is not a minority language because we have 125 plus languages spoken in the country, and 80% of the languages are endangered languages. But Tamang is Tamang is not the endangered language. But my focus here is that even the non-endangered languages have been shifting because of the heavy migration and urbanization, intercaste and many other reasons. And it is, I have already told you about the impact of global north to the global south, so that the 5% of the Tamang population according to census 2011 is the overall population of the country. It is not the population of the Kathmandu Valley. Please be clear about it, because in Kathmandu Valley, Tamang consists of around 20% of the population.
Ishani has typed a question. I'll quickly read it. You talked about language shift, but I wanted to know about the language contact situation. Tamang has been indigenous to Nepal before Nepali was imposed as the official language. So has Tamang received from Nepal? Has Tamang received from the Nepali language? Since in its years of development since Prithvi Narayan Saha's rule, Nepali has received a lot from other indigenous languages in and around Kathmandu.
No, Yes, Tamang is the Tibeto-Burman language and it has not been developed from the Nepali language. And Tamang is indigenous language of Nepal, but it is not the endangered and minority languages of Nepal. This is what I could say now.
Okay.
So, talking about the language shift, the language contact situation of the Kathmandu Valley, I guess that my book has already been published from the Palgrave Macmillan Language Contact in Nepal, and if you could go and see the introduction of the book in the net, you could find the language contact situation of Nepal is a whole.
Okay, so there's another question from CIIL, someone from CIIL. Is there verbal agreement in Tamang?
Yes, of course, there is verbal agreement in Tamang, but I am talking here about language contact and socio-political aspect, so I am not talking about the core linguistics things here.
Bhim, I have a couple of questions. I'll quickly ask them. You can answer one or two and we can talk about it later as well. So the first question that I have is, when you take data from language activists, do you think that there is a different perspective?
Of course, because language activists are indirectly and sometimes directly connected with the political parties. So these activists are, some are especially the rightist and some are leftist, and within the leftists there are Maoist groups and there are UML groups, and within the rightists there are Congress groups and the feudalist groups.
So do you find this language ideology reflecting in their
Of course.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to ask. And then I have a question related to the code mixing. So if you find code mixed sentences,
yes,
do you think that the grammatical markers are from Tamang, or it can be taken from Nepali or Hindi as well?
Both.
Okay,
Both.
okay. So you find a pattern because you are looking at language contact, so you find a pattern.
Yes.
Okay. And if you find the YouTube videos which are recently created by several groups, so there are Tamang videos as well. So in the Tamang videos, I'm sure you find mixture with Nepali.
Yes,
for example, in popular songs or traditional songs sung in popular ways, etc. So if you find mixture with Nepali, do you also find a pattern there?
Yes, of course.
Is it predictable?
But it needs to be studied well.
Okay. And the last question that I have has already been asked by Tanmoy sir in a different way. How the situation of Tamang is different from the situation of Tamang in India? The status is different. So do you think that the difference in status also directly exhibit difference in code mixing patterns?
Of course, Tamangs in Sikkim, India are the diaspora, so they have been affected by the neighboring language of Sikkim, especially the Indian languages too. And the Tamangs here in Nepal, they have different dialectal variety, the Eastern Tamang, the Western Tamang, the Central Tamangs, like that. And there are majority of the speakers, and we find some monolingual Tamang villages somewhere else in the Kabre and other places too, but we could not find such monolingual Tamang villages there, I guess, in Sikkim too.
Thank you so much for the clarification, Bhim.